Hello and welcome back. We're moving on to part two for week 8, excuse me. So what part 2 is this week is we're spending a little bit more time talking about simple corrections and also reviewing some harder issues perhaps. So hopefully as we're using these in our writing and when you're speaking as well, that you are able to remember them better, but also that later you'll be able to access them in your memory that much easier. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like to spend some time with a week 7 review. The frequency adverbs are, when we write them, they tend to be, we can make sense of it when we're doing individual separate exercises, but actually I've noticed that when students attempt to use them in writing and when they use them in speaking, either they skip them entirely, which you shouldn't do. If you can use frequency adverbs, you give much more detail, which helps your projects, whatever you're doing, presentations or writing, immensely. It gives a lot more information, a lot more detail, and it helps your readers or your listeners to understand much more about your thinking and your feelings. So we're going to take a look at week 7 and we're going to do some review. And what I've done, because I like quizzes and I enjoy students trying things out for themselves, is to talk about them. We're going to give you some review sentences to work with, and then we're going to talk about how to fix them up. And then at the end, we're going to do a mixed bag, which is, putting together a variety of sentences and trying to figure out how to put them together. One of the issues I've noticed in Korean English language education is that often students are taught individual phrases, but to use them is not taught. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to compare the differences between 3 different types of frequency adverbs, and then hopefully you'll be able to use them much more fluently in your writing and when you're speaking. So what I'd like to do first is to review the frequency adverbs with to be. Okay, so if you remember to be, I use to be or not to be because it's from a famous speech in Shakespeare's Hamlet. But to be actually is when we use, I am, she is, he is, they are. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. Past tense, he was, she was. Now remember that frequency adverbs are usually used with present tense. But it is possible to use them sometimes with past tense, or we can also use them with present continuous, for example. So the most important point is where to put them. Now, in this case, this is grammar. So my question to you is, what is grammar? Why do we study grammar and urban? Usually students don't like grammar. But the reason why we study grammar is because grammar is the parts of language that don't change. So this is something we can study and we can analyze. So this is why we tend to focus on grammar in education and in teaching. Because it's basically like puzzle pieces. It's a formula that you can follow, a system that you can follow, which communicates the correct idea that you wish to give. So remember that that's really why we focus on grammar in this case. So frequency adverbs, we can focus on grammar because when we use words which when we use is, he is, or they are, and then we use frequency adverbs, we can place them accordingly. So let's see how you do. I've given you 3 sentences here. What I would like you to do is to correct the sentences and put the frequency verbs and the frequency adverbs, and the verbs in the correct order in the sentences. So pause your video and try. Okay, I'm going to continue, and remember, if you need more time, try. There's nobody for you to be right or wrong with. Actually the only person that this is relevant for is yourself, and that's the nice part about this. So what I'd like to do is take a look at each of these sentences and point out what we studied last week. But sometimes, it's important for us to contact these issues again and again and again, because repetition helps us to remember. So for is, are, was, were, it comes before the frequency adverb. So our teacher, Mrs. Jones, is never late for lessons. So because lots of students want to reverse it, please remember to be is first. Number 2, I am sometimes bored in math lessons. So again, we have the same pattern. So again, this is our grammar focus. So the is verb comes first, the am, the are, the to be verb comes first. I'm sometimes bored in math lessons. Number 3, again, same case. So we have is, my friend Jisoo is often tired because she studies so hard. So we have our main focus here as being that the to be verb is, am, are comes before the frequency adverb. In this next case, this is when we have not to be. So again, my maybe silly English joke, to be or not to be. Moving to our Shakespeare's Hamlet speech. Frequency adverbs, so we're looking now at not to be. So if it's not to be, so all other verbs, we're going to be taking a look at, so here I've given you the choices of clean, help, watch, okay? So what I'd like you to do now is to test yourself once again and figure out, and perhaps you can remember because of the way we're approaching this, what I'd like you to do is to place these frequency adverbs and verbs in the correct orders in the sentences. So if you could do that now and pause the video, go for it. Okay, I'm going to move on, but again, remember that this is for you to test yourself, so do your best and have a look. The other way you can test yourself is sometimes if you say it out loud and you test it out. So you say, I often clean my bedroom at the weekend, or I clean often my bedroom at the weekend. Which one sounds better? Which one sounds more natural? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look now. So I'm looking at slide 15 and now moved on to 16. So we have our answers. So did you get it? So remember that our point was it's the opposite of the to be verbs. So in this case, all other verbs are after the frequency adverbs. So number 1 is, I often clean my room at the weekend. Is it true? Do you? I hope it's true, because remember that a clean room helps you to feel better about yourself and the space that you're in, and it provides a better workspace for you, for yourself. Number 2, my brother hardly ever helps me with my homework. What a stinky brother. So in this case, again, we've got our frequency adverb, but be careful because it is 2 words here, hardly ever. Then we have the verb coming after the frequency adverb. So he hardly ever, almost never helps me with my homework. Number 3, again, we've got the same case. And if you notice, I've color coded these so that the reds are the to be verb with the frequency adverbs coming after. And the green is the all other verbs, so not to be verbs, which come after the frequency adverbs. So all greens are the regular verbs. So we rarely watch football on TV. I don't know if that's true or not. I imagine that's probably not true for a lot of you, because I'm hoping there are a lot of football fans out there. So hopefully you often watch football on TV, but you notice that you can change this, all of the frequency adverbs to reflect how often you do something. So remember, our focus for this is how often. Next, I'm going to move on now to slide 17. So in this case, I've added another one, which is the counting. This is a higher level again, because you're providing a lot of information. This is really, really useful for talking about your routines, how often you do something. So what I'd like you to do is, once again, test yourself. So what I've done here is I've scrambled the sentences, and what I'd like you to do is unscramble the sentences and put them in the correct order now, please. Okay, so you can pause the video, of course, take your time and have a look, see if you can get your orders right. So what I'm hoping, I moved on now to the answers on slide 18, is that you noticed that, or you remembered, because you studied so hard, that counting comes at the end. So she eats Italian food 3 times a week. The 3 times a week is our focus because you're counting 1, 2, 3, how many times a week. So it comes it comes at the end of your statement. Of course, we can add at the end extra information, but actually the main point here, the main clause is she eats Italian food. How often? 3 times a week comes at the end. Number 2, my little brother in particular, listens to hip hop music. How often? Every day. He listens to hip hop music every day. The every day comes at the end of the sentence. Number 3, my friend goes to bed before 10 p.m. every night. If you wanted to, you could probably switch it around and say my friend goes to bed every night before 10 p.m. Possible, but you would be more likely to put every night at the end of the sentence. But to communicate your meaning, I think both are possible. So I'm going to now ask you to move on to slide 19. In slide 19, what I've done is I've mixed these to give you a little bit more of a difficult time. So again, I would like you to test yourself. So in this case, I've removed the frequency adverbs and the verbs, and I've put them at the end of the sentences. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the video, take a look at these 6 sentences, and put the frequency adverbs and the verbs in the correct part of the sentence. So pause your video and try. Test yourself. Okay, so I'm going to continue as always. If you need more time, pause the video for a little bit longer. So in number 1, we have the school bus, and what I've done is I've color-coded these so that if you're not sure or you want to check, you can go back and check yourself and see and match it up. So number 1 is the school bus always arrives at 8:30, which is 8:30. So we have arrive as the basic verb, so it comes after the frequency adverb. Number 2, I drink coffee every morning, so our verb is drink, and we're counting. How many mornings? Every single morning. Number 3, you are usually at the sports center on Sunday. We have the are, which is the to be verb, so it comes before the frequency adverb. Number 4, you and Tony never play computer games with me. So play is a regular verb, it's not to be, so it comes after the frequency adverb. Number 5, my friends and I go out to eat twice a month. So how often do you do that? We're counting twice a month, so that comes at the end of the statement. And our last one, number 6, my parents are always in church on Saturday mornings. We're using are, which is a to be verb, which means it comes before the frequency adverb. And that is the end of part 2, our week 7 review. I hope that this has helped. We're going to move on to part 3 in the next video. So take care. Bye-bye.